Welcome back to the Table Rush Talk Show, where we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, marketing, and personal growth. I'm your host, Mischa Zvegansoff, and today I have an inspiring conversation with Glenn Akramoff, founder and CEO of Akramoff LLC. With over 30 years of experience in building human-centered workplace cultures, Glenn shares how focusing on purpose-driven teams can not only bring fulfillment at work, but also boost productivity. He opens up about his personal journey from hitting rock bottom to becoming a city manager and offers incredible insights on how a sense of purpose can transform your professional and personal life. You don't want to miss this. Listen in. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I was trying to pronounce your name correctly a few times, and go ahead, say it for us, your last name.
Akramoff.
Akramoff. There we
Yep.
go. I think I was not so good the first time I said it, maybe better
Yep.
the second time I
Yep.
said it. Any good stories or anything behind your last name or?
Well, it's Americanized. My grandfather came from Russia through Greece and through when the in 1919, and so it's Americanized for sure. Um, and there's only about 15 of us, I think, that have that last name in the country. So there's not many of us. And soon to be one less when my daughter gets married next year. So,
She's not going to keep the last name, huh?
well, she might. She's a doctor, so she might.
Oh,
But
she might flex a
yeah,
little bit, flex her
yeah,
muscle a little bit and
right,
say, you get my last name.
right.
That's great. My last name is Zvagantsov, and my grandfather came over from Russia in 1917. Same thing, Bolshevik Revolution.
Mhm.
We fled to Paris and then U.S., but sounds like we have a little bit of
We certainly do.
overlap there. Yeah. Um, well, uh, let's get on it. Let's get to it. And um, I don't pick, I guess, let's see. Where do I want to go here? I get a lot of guesting requests from people, and I turned down a lot of people. What struck me, or what was interesting or tantalizing, I'm trying to think of a good word for that, about you, was this human-centered workplace idea, purpose-driven, human-centered teams, ensuring fulfillment at work, these kinds of things, purpose-driven. Talk to me about that, or you seem to be coming from a space of how do we find fulfillment versus how do we be more productive, perhaps. Is that an accurate way to say it, or?
Yeah, yeah. I would say productivity comes from fulfillment for sure. I've watched it, in all of my work, including when I first started as a leader, for sure. So one of the things that I've really realized through all of that work and through my own self work is that having a purpose, we're all put on here on the planet for a purpose. Finding that purpose and then serving it is what we're about. And almost all the purposes that we have are about serving other human beings. Every religious book that you can think of talks about that. And so it really became apparent to the rest of the world when a COVID came and people were at home and isolated and weren't really serving out some of their purposes. And, the statistics are overwhelming about alcohol abuse and drug abuse and suicides. All those things went up. Um, and I believe that that's what happens is when you're serving your purpose and you feel like you have something that you are doing that not everybody else can do, and that all of us have that. You really, it changes your life and it helps you focus and makes you feel that fulfillment, even if it's just a short period of time. And that's one of the things that I see shortcomings in workplaces. They don't serve their own purpose and they don't help the individual serve theirs.
Mm. Did you spoke to having a growth mindset, to how can I serve? I think that's such a powerful place to work from as well. Did you hit bottom early in life to fall into that attitude, or you came out of the womb that way, or?
Well, I had two great parents, and I'm very lucky for that. And as I gotten older, it's become clear that that was a big thing. So I don't know if I've came out of the womb there, but I've always been super curious about behaviors and patterns and things like that. But yeah, at 27, had a lot of stuff going on, and then ended up in a divorce. Ended up in a little dinky apartment, totally broke, and my kids were with their mom, and then I was just a tough, ridiculous time. And I'm sitting there and in watching an infomercial at 3 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep, and it's Tony Robbins, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, whatever. But every night I'm like watching him, and so I bought his book, Awaken the Giant Within, and started the journey. And of course, I've read thousands of those, probably 1,000 of the self-help kind of genre books. And of course, they all have some common themes. And I just started putting it into work, saying, you know what, I got to do something. And it just started working. And my life improved slowly at the beginning, but and then I realized that's part of what I want to do, and what I'm good at is helping other people with that journey.
Mm, it's beautiful. I would not wish divorce on anyone. I went through it myself in my mid to young 40s, I think it was. So to go through it at 27,
Yeah.
that powerful. What's powerful about that, I think, is the self-awareness, or that moment of clarity of I need to change. What year is that? I'm visualizing you in your little dinky apartment. I don't know, 1990 or
Yeah, you're
something
right.
like that.
You're right. It was 1992. Yep.
Yeah, Tony Robbins. And so TV is different than it is today,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and the infomercials. And if you don't mind me asking, are you suicidal at this point? Do you get to see your kids at all? Did your ex-wife get 100% custody, or what's going on there?
Yeah, it was joint custody. I got them, and as the years evolved, I got them more and more. It wasn't. She never kept me from the kids too much. She actually wanted me to have them at a lot of times so she could do her thing.
Yeah.
But was I suicidal? No. I just was, I hadn't really launched in life yet. So, I had just gotten a job in local government as a water meter reader, 8 months before, and it's just things were moving okay, but I had no real direction, and I was conscious of that when I was younger. I was like, I'm gonna play a little bit in my 20s, and I did, and made thousands and thousands of mistakes,
Yes.
and but it was that time when I realized, it's time I need to learn from these mistakes. And I mean, it's been a constant journey since then, but I really, I just, when I was there in that little dinky apartment, basement apartment, ants climbing up the wall, just a horrible place. Um,
Living the dream.
That's right. That's right. Well, I tell you what, it gives you good stories now. That's what I always say is, tragedy and all kinds of negativity brings you good stories to tell someone later. And that's been my message is if I can do it, you can do it. But I just felt like from a young age I was supposed to do something special, and I didn't know what that was, and I decided one of those late nights that I'm going to find out what it is.
Mm.
And if it takes me my whole life to do that, that's what I'll do. And it was a pretty fast track. So from that night, from that day, um, less than from that day was 92. So in 2015, no, 2012, I became a city manager. So I went from a so it was, when you look at it, you're like, when you're in it, you're like, ah, this is so slow. But when I look at it, I'm like, wow, I went from the lowest job to the highest job in a city organization in less than 20 years. So it was a pretty good journey.
That's incredible. I definitely want to touch on that in a moment. I'm just reading a book right now. I'm in a book club, a few of us guys, mid 50s, some of them are young 60s, and we're reading books and somebody picked Cloud Atlas, which I believe was written in the 90s. Have you ever read Cloud Atlas? Does that
Yeah,
ring
it's
a
been a
bell for
long
you?
time. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's an interesting line at the very end, and I'm tempted to go get the book. It's sitting back there, but it basically says, you know, I'm not sure how to recap the book, but the line at the end, the book is definitely about humans, human nature, you know, how we're evolving. But at the very end, one of the last lines is, hey, self-centeredness is the poison of humans that will, in essence, destroy civilization. And I just read that yesterday, and it was I agree. I'm like,
Hmm.
man, I agree with your philosophy of how can I serve? What can I bring to the table? How can I serve? What can I bring to the table? I literally said that little mantra before we jump on here.
Hmm.
And because I think we can be skewed, right? Our own selfish wants, desires, fears, human nature for, success or money, shiny objects, whatever it is, can definitely bounce us off the path of perhaps how we can best serve,
Sure.
But what do you think about that line?
Well, it's interesting. What you just said is you talk about that before you come into an episode. When I do workshops and when I go into workplaces for the first time, before I walk in front of the group, I always say, this is for them, not me.
Mm,
And so I definitely believe in that. I also, I mean, it's been proven over and over in my life, but in everybody else's, when you serve someone else and you give of yourself, you're going to get that returned in some way.
mm,
And so we're rewarded. Some people don't see that right away, but we're rewarded for serving other people. The universe does that. Regardless
yeah.
of what your belief is, religious beliefs and all that, the universe rewards service.
So good. Sometimes we have to be patient too, right? That's
Oh
the hard
yeah.
part.
Yeah, it might not be right this minute, that's for sure.
Excuse me. So you're 27, ants are crawling up the apartment walls, 3 a.m. You watch the Tony Robbins infomercial and you get awaken the giant within. It starts transforming your life, and you sounds like start digging in all sorts of other empowerment books, mindset books,
Mhm.
things like this. And you were a meter reader, which is the lowest. That's the lowest form of civil government. Is that
It
what
is.
what I
It
heard you
is.
say?
It's not. There are a number of other positions that are equal to it, but it's the at the time, certainly in the organization I was in, it was the lowest paid. It was the entry level position, and I'd
Yeah.
I'd been there, so I got that job. And so we talk about the speed of things. I was in that job 4.5 years of the time frame that I talked about.
That's incredible. So you grind it out for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Then the next 15 are sort of this rocket ride to being a city manager. Um,
Mhm.
there's in some of the pre-work I did on you a little bit. I got one thing. It says you are an authority. I'm reading it right now.
Mhm.
You are an authority in revitalizing mun municipal government workplaces. Let me say that again. You are an authority in revitalize. I can't say it. You are an authority in revitalizing municipal government workplaces. So I guess as a city manager or your 20-year journey, um, you're seeing a lot and having an opportunity to affect change. And I wrote down two things, and maybe you can speak to this and wherever you want to take it. What do you see as the problem, or what did you see as the problem, and where are you taking them to? Does that make
Yeah,
sense, or is
yeah,
that
yeah,
conflict?
absolutely. I think there's a couple of things. One is that in municipal government, it's actually easy to point to people and say you have a really good purpose because you're serving other people. That's all your function is. But most organizations, because they get the negativity and they focus on it, because the community does complain and does hit them hard as employees, they forget why they're there. And the leadership doesn't always, and I would say rarely, helps them understand why they're there and how important their work is. So that's number one. So we hit that really hard. The other one is there's a lot of people who are in the wrong space. And in government, people who haven't been in it are like, well, they're lazy and all that sort of stuff. And there is some of that. Let's be clear, that's not 100% false. But I think the other part, the thing that ties that all together is that um, they aren't that way. They have service hearts, and sometimes people are put in those jobs and they stay in them because everyone says that's a good, easy, steady job, and they don't have a servant's heart in that way, and so they're miscast. And you find that heavily. So those are the two things that when we go into an organization, we concentrate on. And once you fix those, you get some momentum going. The other is that I think the third one is, and it's not municipal governments, it's everywhere, is I don't have control of, I have no control. And that's totally false. You always have control, but people feel like, or they've given up hope that they have it in the workplace. And of course, that's part of the revolution I think that's going on now, is that people are like, well, I'm going to leave if I don't have control. Well, that's one of your control points.
Interesting. Well, let's talk to this. Sometimes I can be cynical and I can think that it can feel like there's mass change coming or enlightenment or revolution. I don't mean revolution like the government's going to be overthrown, but maybe a mindset evolution or something like that. But other times I'm like, yeah, I don't know. We're deteriorating so much over here and having so much growth over here. But maybe speak to that a little bit about this revolution that you're saying.
Yeah,
Or
I think it's being led by a couple of groups specifically, but I also think you know COVID and some of the reality of people going, you know what, I'm not happy anymore and I'm not willing to be unhappy. But I think the millennials and the Gen Z, or whatever you want to, whatever, I don't think they've been around enough to really name themselves, but I think they will do that soon enough. But they don't tolerate the some of the stuff that we put up with in workplace. You got to earn your way. You got to, you know, and hazing and all the things that I went through in the early workplace is gone mostly. I mean, it's not 100% gone, but it is compared to what I mean. There were times I had to fight people in the parking lot to earn my stripes, right? We don't have to do that anymore. But they don't tolerate bad culture, and they don't tolerate, this is the biggest one, they don't tolerate not understanding what the purpose of the organization is. Um, and they don't always know what theirs is, but that's part of it. So that is kind of the shock going on in the workplace. So why everyone has high turnover? I mean, especially, I only think about 10% of organizations are healthy at this point, to a point where they're not going to have turnover. I hope to grow that. That's what our mission is. But I think that's the challenge, is that you've got these people who, hey, I'm not going to put up with that. I need to know why I'm doing this and why it's important. And then you've got leaders who grew up and came through the ranks where that doesn't matter. So we're not going to tell you that doesn't matter. And so you've got that dichotomy going. So you have high turnover. And that's usually when I get a call, when turnover has been high for a long period of time and it's costing them money or productivity.
did I hear you say you thought that only 10% of company cultures are healthy?
Yes. Yep. That's what I
Wow.
said. Yeah.
It's a massive opportunity. Hey, let's talk about what you do in your business and Akramoff. Um, where's your business name? Uh, Akram Akramoff LLC.
Hmm.
Let's talk about. We've been hinting to what you do, but maybe
Right.
break it down for us. Give us the elevator pitch or what
Sure.
you. Yeah.
So what we do, you mentioned earlier, we've revitalized workplaces. So we tend to go in, and I there's me and one other consultant now. And we go in when someone calls us or about struggling. And a lot of times there's a couple of triggers that come from it. One is a bad manager has just been eliminated or moved on, or there's a manager struggling and they want us to come in and help them, either one. And we'll come in two different ways. We come in, so the manager who's struggling or the leader who's struggling will come in alongside them and help them um, identify and succeed. We do that by doing an assessment of the organization. Or I will come in, or our other consultant will come in as interim leaders. So we'll take over the entire organization or a part of it and start the change process. We do an assessment, a detailed assessment of everything to do that. And then we create a roadmap of change so everyone can see it. The key to that is that we don't just talk to the leaders. Our rule is if you're going to bring us in, we're going to talk to every person in that group or the organization. And if you're not going to allow us to do that, we'll tell you no, because we know that the answers in that recommendation in the end, most of them come from the employees. And a lot of them come from the frontline employees because they know what's going on and they know what the customer needs. And when you get that, and then they dump. You think, well, are they going to talk to the new consultant guy? Well, we work hard in earning their trust and respect first, but they dump. They will dump all the information that they can because they want to see a change because most of them are committed to the organization they're in. They don't want to leave. So and when we come in, a lot of times we're the last hope for a lot of people, and hope is gone, and they're like, well, I don't think anything's going to change. That's what I get a lot. I don't think anything's going to change, but I'm going to tell you what I think, and then hopefully you can help. Um, so it's um, our stress level goes up when we enter these workplaces. That's for sure.
You have a gift to be
Yeah.
able to deal with that and bring it about and deal with it. Hey, but a couple things are striking. I was going to say that clearly, and you just spoke to it, a company has to be hitting bottom hard because leadership has to be ready to take a hard look at themselves from the people who are willing to talk and point it out
Mhm.
and be like, hey, here's the problem and we're not happy and this is why. And if you're not ready to look at that, you're not the company to bring in. Uh, I also was struck by this. It sounds like you have this idea of you've got this old school mentality. So you've got these businesses that have old established structures, ways of doing things that are generationally perhaps out of date. So we've got the new school mentality, and they're like, hey, this is not cool.
Right.
And I don't care that this is how it was done in the past. That line doesn't work for me. And
Right.
so you've got this conflict. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
So what are some of the signs of the problems? I think you spoke to one of them was high turnover, obviously. What
Hmm.
else are we seeing? When you get the call, there's high turnover. What else, what other things are you seeing that the pain?
Well, I think it's interesting that they say we're just not being successful is what they'll say because again, they don't want to take accountability for what's going on, and some don't, some will. Let me be clear: there are leaders that have called me and say, I don't, I want my team to be successful, and I don't know how to get them there, and I haven't been able to get them there. Can you come help? Um, but a couple of the other signs are when I go in, there's a lot of substance abuse. The percentages tend to be a little bit higher than society. Um, there tends to be mental illness. There tends to be an inability to communicate um, up or down or within the team. And usually I call it a team, but usually when I get there, there is no team. There's a bunch of individuals running around not doing stuff together, even though they might want to, or small groups working together and others not. So it's individuals, not a team. And then the last one is that I mentioned earlier that people are misplaced, uh, but a lot of times there is no accountability, or accountability is random, or done in a favoritism way. So if you got favor of the boss, then you're okay. No matter, you can do whatever you want. If you don't, it's real cliquish and that sort of thing. So that triggers there may be investigations going on about that, right? So there might be um, a harassment investigation, or a number of other type of workplace investigations that are going on, that people are like, we're having too many of these, or this is embarrassing that we have one, and we didn't see it coming. So
Ooh.
those are the signs that get me in the building.
I'm having this. You're so. I don't know if soft spoken's the right word, but you have a gentleness about you, but a firmness about you. But I don't know if gentleness is the right word. But yeah, I would say gentleness. Clearly, you're open-hearted, or there's so many different ways to say it. It's
Yeah.
evident that that you have a compassionate, you're compassionate, here to serve, things like that. But I'm just thinking of you rolling in the door, and you almost have to be a hard ass to a certain extent, yeah?
Uh,
Or you got a duality going on
It's
here.
a
Yeah, go ahead.
duality. Yeah, absolutely. It's a duality. So when I come in, and so say, let's use I'm going to come in and be the interim leader. Um, I come in and I require that we do an all staff meeting that introduces me, and the leader, whoever's bringing me in, will introduce me, and then I take over. And I have a general speech that I go through, and it takes both of those into account. I start with, you know, talking about who I am and what I do, and I give them my guiding principles and a couple of other things. And of course, everyone's intimidated. They're like, "Is he come in here to clean us all out and fire us all?" And they all are thinking that, and I know that. And then at the end, as we get to near the end, I talk about, hey, you've gone through pain, you've gone through suffering. I understand that. Sometimes usually they've lost a leader. I know, even if you didn't like the leader, or it wasn't good for you, there is a mourning process to go through. And whatever you have to do to go through that, that's an individual thing. But I'm here to help you do that and move on. And so you have that dual thing. I think one of the things that all my clients say is I have a calming effect.
Yeah.
And I think I thank my dad for that. Actually, the duality of me is my parents. My mom was real assertive, and my dad, not that he wasn't, because he was a police officer. He could be assertive at any time, but he had a calming effect. And so I got that from them, and I've been able to expand it. But yeah, it's a real interesting dynamic, coming into a place like that, because fear is rampant. It's
Mm,
everywhere. And that's
mm,
my first goal, is to get that gone. You're not going to lose your job unless you choose to lose your job. And um, once you get them to do that, and they know that I care about them, that's the other thing, right? That's usually what happens, is they don't think anyone cares.
mm,
And so I spend my first 6 weeks building their trust, earning their respect, and helping them know that I care. And we do that a little differently, right? I get in the crap with them. I feel what they feel. And they can see that I do. And when they do that, they're like, wow, he's in it with us. And so that's an important part of what we do. And like I said, it stresses me out. I'm gonna feel the stress. I know that. And the higher the stress, the higher the cost. That's the way that works for me. But in the end, it's so rewarding to leave 7, 8, 9 months later, handing it off to a new leader that we've helped hire, and see them take ownership of their workplace. And
mm,
that's what I do, is I take that mantra of working myself out of the job seriously. That's my model.
mm. It's funny. You're like, hey, this is a fun gift, but it's an incredibly stressful gift. But it is, the universe is like, here's what you get to do.
Right, right.
You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it was not always easy going, yeah, oh, I'm really good. Because I one of the challenges is we'd like to scale the business. I can't find the other consultant I have is my son,
Mm,
right? So we've lived some of the same life together, and he has this a similar skill set. Not exact, but he can do this and he does it really well. We're looking for people who want to do this and have this calling, and there's just not a lot of them out there that want to take this on. And I get it, I know, but it's magical when you can be a part of something like that.
you have more work than you know what to do with right now.
Yeah, the challenge for us is, and it comes in surges, because money always impacts this, for sure, and because people don't always see that. But yeah, I have tons of work, more than I can pour out on a regular basis. There have been times in our 4 years, 3.5 years in business where we've had to turn tons of people away, and I hate doing it.
Mm,
Um, Not so much because of the money, it's because I know people are hurting, and
mm,
and that's how we help people. That's our mission. So all the stuff we're working on now is trying to get the message out and help people do it on their own if they can.
mm,
And um, because there's 108,000 municipalities in the country, we're not going to
mm,
get to them all. Let
mm.
alone we're doing private business too. My son is an expert in private small business, so we can't get to y'all. So if you can do it yourself, we're glad if you take whatever things we have and use them, and call us if you need help just a little bit. We're good with that.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to speak to your father for a second, and I was struck when you said your father was a police officer and had a calming effect. And I instantly had the thought, yeah, that's a good police officer who can de-escalate and bring out the humanness of the situation and almost allow both parties to calm down and see like the other person's perspective almost. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'm just thinking of the reality of what most police officers are probably going through are domestic situations of some sort, escalated situations where perhaps there's alcohol and or drugs involved. That's the bulk of it. It's not a bank robbery, right?
No, no,
It's
those are rare. Yeah.
yeah, and that how powerful that is. Your father must have been a great police officer. I'm just thinking, yeah, you want to speak to that for a sec
Yeah,
or
yeah, and we haven't brought it up, but I wrote a book called The Human Centered Team, talking about how I do this, but I also tell stories on how I learned the lessons. So I'm going to tell the one about my dad. So because it's totally relatable to this. Um, we were supposed to go to dinner one night. He's got the scanner on, he's listening to the radio, does that regularly. There's a call just down the street. And so he said, "Get in the car. We're all going to go to dinner, but I got to go take care of this." So he's not on duty, but he's got two of his guys. He's a sergeant at the time. He's got two of his guys in a conflict uh with someone who actually is from my neighborhood, and I know, right? So we drive up, and he's a huge guy. He's like, I don't know, 6'3", 280, just a massive man, but he's 16 years old at the time. And he took both of the nightsticks away from the two police officers. So he's got the nightsticks, and I mean, this is a hot moment, right? They got their guns drawn, and my dad walks up and gets out of the car, and we're watching this. And that tells you how confident he was in himself. He's got his family standing there watching. He guns drawn. Okay, whatever. We're gonna handle this. So he walks up, and he talks to the guy who's got the nightsticks and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "They're gonna kill me." He said, "I'm here. No one's gonna kill you. You're okay." So, and then he tells the two guys, "Put your guns away." And so they do. And they're like, "He's attacking us. You guys are okay." And then, they're hot, right? There's yelling and screaming as this, and he talks softer and softer and softer. So they got to all lean in to hear him. And and then he says, "All right, he says the guy's name. He says, "All right, you're okay. I'm here. Drop the nightsticks and assume the position." And so he did. And it's just a calming moment. And the two officers, are and my dad wouldn't let them cuff him, right? He said, "Give me the handcuffs," and he cuffs them and he puts them in the car. He says, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. I'll make sure that you're okay." And then he goes and calms the officers down and tells them, "Hey, you did what you're supposed to do. You did everything. This escalated. We'll debrief it later. Let's calm down." And he walks them through the calming down process. And this all took place in like a 4 minute span. And they calmed down like there was no event. And then one of them got in the car and took him to the police station, which was, miles away. And in the end, he was charged with a few minor things, but once he got released, my dad followed up with him. They debriefed the issue, and then my dad comes to the car and we go to dinner. that's that's the work that he did, and a lot of people didn't see that part of it. But yet, do I think he was a great police officer? Yes. Do I think most of them today, a lot of them today are? Yes. So to me, it's just it was an amazing example that I got to watch from start to finish. And I use that every day.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure there's countless. I just think of being a police officer in the modern day environment with cameras and everything and social media and reality TV and da 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 da. Like the unsung hero is the bulk of the police forces in the US, I am sure.
Yeah.
And the random escalated situation. I mean, clearly, I don't mean to go down the rabbit hole here, but there's people who there's bad eggs everywhere. So
Yeah.
I don't mean to do that, but I just think that too, so oftentimes things people are misquoted or clips are misappropriated or things like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, what you were city manager of which municipality?
It's called Normandy Park, Washington, which is where I still live there. Yeah.
Was it like Washington State? So
Yep.
West Coast?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. And how big's the community that you served or the city that you served
It
or
Population was 6,500, but I've worked in places that have been as over 100,000. So I've
yeah.
got a
And
pretty vast population service.
cool. And I guess I have two thoughts. One are I'm just thinking of you rolling into a municipality or a I mean this is government workplaces. Is that another way of saying that?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
local government. Yeah,
local government. And
yeah,
so that's got to be my perception of local government is change is nearly impossible.
yeah.
So, and you got to have a lot of people signing off on it to even get to the point of 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 it's okay to change, right? Like that's got to be
Correct.
an issue too. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, yeah. I think it isn't impossible. I think that's always been the thing internally too. Like you can't change this place. I get that all the time. We've been this way for as long as I've been here, and some people can be telling me that I've been there 25 years, and they're like, "You're not going to change this place," but we do, because you work with the people, and we do concentrate on the other things, right? We do concentrate on culture, but we also concentrate on that structure, uh, systems, processes, external forces, we call them, which are things you can't control that impact your work, which is huge in local government. And then, of course, we talk about KPIs. How do you measure your true success? So, um, and really, what you need to do is because they don't change well, and change process never makes or rarely makes it to the front lines. That's the secret, is to get it to the front lines, get the energy going there. And that's really what we do, is we get the change momentum going. It doesn't end because it can be endless, and that's what you want. You want them to just to become comfortable with the change process and guide it the way it needs to go to help the organization and help all the individuals in it. Um, the key to that is to show each individual what's in it for them. That's the key. And once you realize that, the leader realizes, hey, these are the 5 things I get. And then the frontline realizes these are the 5 things I get from the same process. Like, well, why am I going to get in the way? I can make more money. I can do, I can have more training or whatever they're looking for. And it's funny about human beings and the human spirit. You can't kill it. And once you light it, it will guide the way.
Mm, mm. It's beautiful, man. I just love your, I can't put words to it right now. I love it. It's so unique too. Just I have this vision or this idea, or I'm naive about it, but I'm thinking of you've got city government, local government, whatever, and and you're rolling in, and what I'm thinking you're going to hear is we're this way by mandate,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
this is the way it is.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like even coming across that, but um, where do I want to go here? Oh yeah. So I guess generally speaking, for the individual, so feet on the street, you've mentioned them a couple of times, frontline, service workers, employees, whatever, city workers, generalizing, what is in it for them? Just like, what do you help them see?
Well, I think there's first of all there's hope. There's understanding that they do it, their job means something. I mean, when you're let's take a street maintenance worker. If you don't do your job, people get hurt. And if you're
Mm,
not aware of that and no one's told you and you don't realize that, then you don't realize how important your work is. So that's one. Hey, my work is important. I do important stuff every day and I
mm,
impact the world. And I think that's what's in it, part of what's in it for them. The other part is that when you work in an organization that is high performing, you attract more high performance.
mm,
So people don't, poor employees who don't want to hold up the standard don't even interview. They don't even apply. It's an amazing process that we watch. So you get better teammates. Your leaders get better, and if you demand them, you get to demand that they're better, and they are better. You and there's some line. There's a number of the motivational speakers out there who talk about um, performance gets paid. You will get paid more. Your salary will go up. And the more valuable you become to an organization, the more you have a upward path. And for some people that they don't want an upward path, they just want to be where they are, which is awesome. I want them to do what they love to do and what they're good at, but they will make more money too. Successful organizations, whether they're government or not, will make more money because people want more of success. So if they see it, if they're feeling that in their service, they will pay more to get what they are, and they'll have a pride in their community too. That's the other unique thing, is this creates a whole entire community that starts with that person fixing the street in front of your house.
It's beautiful. I love the vision. It sounds like it's a law of nature too. If you are successful in what you do, even if it's in local government or you think, well, I'm in local government, there can't be more money due to whatever. It's like, well, no, it's a law of nature. Success breeds success, and success is going to bring more compensation. It just has to.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sounds too like you're, as far as a frontline employee or feet on the street, sounds like they could go from dreading showing up to work to loving showing up to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
From,
That's a performance measurement for us.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe from dreading seeing their coworkers to excited to see their coworkers.
Yeah. 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 To
Yeah.
me, you go from people not looking anybody in the eye, including the leader or each other, to coming in and talking and you know, high-fiving and just having a high energy. The energy goes up and it's just an amazing thing to watch it happen and be a part of it. Um, and I
Yeah.
think that's the thing I want to be clear about. I work hard to light that fire at the beginning, but by the time we get halfway through a 7 or 8, 9 month gig, I'm not running that anymore. Right? The team's taken on that energy and they've recreated it and they start to guide it. They don't always know and they're not always confident in it yet, but they're doing it. And when that moment happens, I know I'm on the downside. And I can see it. There's a moment every time that comes from that. And yeah, so that's so magic. And when that happens, I'm like, okay, my work is, now it's paperwork and confidence building. My base work is done.
Yeah, it's good. I'm imagining leaders as well. So leadership or the bosses, however you want to say it, they're going from, I've wasted my life or I've excuse me, wasted years, decades to wow, this is fulfilling. I've made the right choices.
Yeah.
Probably shifts like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the leaders too. A lot of times they think like I'm failed and I'm not good at this and I can never be a really good leader and people don't like me or respect me or whatever. And then they realize, no, there's just these few things that need to happen. And hey, I have a great skill set. That's the other part. It's building the leaders um up. Um and and I have good ideas and I should be talking about them, not hiding them, and I should be implementing them in a way that people see what the big vision is and I can share what my vision is. um, and I know how to do that. I just no one taught me, and that's the other part. No one teaches. I won't say no one, but it's rare that people are taught to be how to be great leaders, and they're always taught in a certain mantra. Well, you got to have this skill set, and you got to do this, and you're not. It's like a fingerprint. You can be your management leadership style is like your fingerprint. It's based on everything that you've been through and who you are. So you got to get it in touch with that first. And so that's some of the work we do with them. And I've just
Mhm.
seen leaders who thought they were never going to go anywhere from where they are, um, to realize, you know what, I want to try the next level and go up 2 or 3 levels before it's all over. And that's really what we're doing, because you have great leaders, then you have great teams, and great teams do great work, and that changes the world.
Yeah. I'm imagining too that as you revitalize the workplace, it's gonna trickle into the family and start to revitalize the family
Yeah.
and and then people whatever's triggering them to fall into you know chemical abuse or whatever or prescriptions or this or that all of a sudden as they start to heal or the workplaces heals there's going to be less and less of a need for that and the toxic people who are perhaps unwilling to change are naturally going to migrate out. I'm
Hmm.
imagining that that's
Yep.
happening.
Yep.
So what a powerful message of healing workplaces, home, community, because ultimately that's going to trickle there too. And
It
all of a
it
sudden, yeah,
it
go ahead.
does, and it does fast. Right? We hear stories of, hey, I was headed to a divorce, or I needed to have a divorce for the last number of years because we just are toxic together, and now we're not. And we're going to divide up, but we did it in a healthy way.
Mm.
And it changes, kids' lives and friends and family, and because we give, the tools that we help them find and the gifts we've helped them find are universal, not just in the workplace. And like everyone says, I mean, you spend 8, 10 hours at a workplace, so you're put, 40 to 50 hours. You have 168 hours in a week. So say you spend 40 hours in a workplace, you've got 50 hours of sleep. You're spending about the same amount with family as you are in work. So
Yeah. So what I have this thought, and I'm hoping it comes back. Um, your 20-year career in municipal government, local government that culminates in us being a city manager. And do you find through this journey you have a gift of how do you figure out you're good at what you do? I guess is my question. Did you, as you're going from municipality to municipality up your chain, are you affecting change all over the place and you're like, I have a gift for this? Or
Yeah. Yeah. So what really triggered it is I took a job. My first leadership job was in a city that had gone from a population of 2,000 to 13,000. It was a new city. It had been incorporated at a bigger level. And the neighbor city was a totally new city, and we partnered with them. So I built a team there, had to redo things and build a team there. So then I went to a second one that was a new city. I was the second manager there for maintenance, and I moved in there and did the same thing. And then I gained a little bit of a reputation, and a third city came to me and said, and interviewed me and said, okay, tell us how to do this. So I told them how I'd done it, and then they called, a year later, and I went and worked with them. That one was fun because it was a total new thing. There was no maintenance there at all. I started from total scratch. So what got me to understand how I could do this is that I was doing basic startup businesses within a government. So I didn't have to make the same mistakes that were made. I didn't have the old school attitude of that's the way we always do it because we didn't have to do it that way. And then I realized that was, as the city manager. So I used all those techniques, built my kind of program through all that time, used it as a city manager. It was successful with the staff and the community. It's political, and the council made a different decision, and that's the way it worked. But I realized I didn't want to be in the grind always as the government necessarily. I'd been in there so long, but I didn't want to throw that away. And I got a call about, hey, your name keeps coming up. We need to fix this from a city. And they said, we need to fix this. And your name keeps coming up as the only one who can do it. So I went in and did it and realized this is what I'm good at. I love building teams. And I joke about it, but it's true. I can put in the lawn, right? I can put the sod in and get it ready to go, but I don't want to mow it. So that's kind of what we do.
I love it. That's such a cool thing. And I imagine some people listening, watching are envious, like, oh, I could just get to go in and do what I love and then leave. And I get to
Yeah,
do what I love and leave, do what I love and leave
yeah,
versus, for people that like building a business or getting it off the ground, getting it off the ground, getting it off the ground.
yep.
Um,
It's
that's so,
I think entrepreneurs do that. There's
yeah,
a lot of them who they call themselves serial entrepreneurs because they love the strike of starting a business, getting it rolling, and then sell it or give it to somebody to run, and then they're going to do it again. And if you have that inclination, I mean, that's our message is if that's the way you want to work and that's your gift, then do it. There's nothing stopping you but you.
anybody listening, watching this, is your hope today as we record this that somebody hears this and goes, man, I want to do what Glenn does. I want to reach out to Glenn and jump on
I,
board.
yeah, I would love it. That would be awesome. Absolutely. And I think there's two. The other is if you have a toxic workplace and you know it, no matter what your role is, it's not healthy. It's not safe for you. People die because they're in toxic workplaces.
Mm.
So fix it. You have control. Doesn't matter whether you're the frontline employee, the meter reader who just started, or the city manager or the CEO. It doesn't matter. At this point, you got to get that process started. So those are my two audiences. Yes, we want to help as many people as we can. And if you have an inclination and you think, that sounds like a really cool thing, and I have some of the skill set that he's talking about, get a hold of me on the website and we'll get to work.
Love it. And that's akramoff.com, akramoff.com. Sorry, I got a scratchy throat all of a sudden. Um, the book you mentioned as well. What was the book?
It,
And can they get it off of the website, or is there a better place
yeah,
to go?
you can go get it off the website. It's called The Human Centered Team, but you can also find it at Amazon, and there is a book page called humancenteredteam.com. So any one of those, but Amazon's the best way.
Cool. Yeah, and if you go to akramoff.com, again, akramoff.com, there's a contact button in the upper right. You can click contact, and your email and contact information is there. And then say the book site one more time.
Humancenteredbook.com.
Fantastic. And that gives the framework or the model of how someone can apply what you're talking about, how to transform and affect their local government, uh, their team,
Yep.
or they can apply that to uh, profit. What do we call it? Regular business.
Oh
What
yeah.
do we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. If you're again, productivity comes from purpose.
yeah.
And if they have purpose, your company will thrive.
Say that one more time without me interrupting you.
Well, the productivity comes from purpose, and you will make money if that's what your mission is with productive, happy employees.
Good. That's a good soundbite. Thank you for that. I'm going to turn that into a clip, by the way. That's why I wanted
Awesome.
you to say it again without me coughing in the background or going, ooh, ah. Um, this has been a ton of fun. I do want to say a couple more things. So one, you deal on the local government, so teams of local government. Your son deals with for-profit businesses. So you've got the government and the business community. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if someone's interested, uh,
Absolutely.
you can serve both those
Mm-hmm.
communities. I'm also looking at your website right now, and it looks like you may have lost some weight or something's going on, or what's
Yes.
happening there?
Yeah, absolutely. I've lost 65 pounds in the last year. And one of the reasons was it was the last battle. I've been battling it my whole life. But I also realized, how can I talk about health with people when I don't look healthy and I'm not healthy? So I am healthy now.
So was that diet, exercise regimes
Yep.
changed? You want to talk
Yep.
about that for a sec?
Yeah.
Give
Yeah,
riff on
absolutely. I
that? Yeah,
got
go
I got
ahead.
a coach, right? Sometimes you need a coach to make it, and I got a coach that we really connected. And Neil Cranwell is a bodybuilder in England, and he has a great story too. And he told me that he and I connected off of LinkedIn, and then we kind of hit it off. And he calls me his unicorn because I'm almost 60 years old, and he said people have given up by then, and you haven't. It's crazy to me. And he gave me a good regime. I stuck to it, and we're almost there. I've got another 10 pounds to drop, and we're to the goal that I want to be at. And but I feel great, and yeah, we have to redo all of our pictures now,
Well,
which is a good thing.
the great thing. You look amazing, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh, so how tall are you?
I'm 5'9".
5'9", and you went from what to what
I
weight
went
wise?
in this stretch, I went from 263. I'm at 200. So I'm bouncing back between 198 and 200 right now. We're trying to drop to 192. So totally it'll be 70 pounds. In when COVID started in April of 2020, I weighed 285 pounds. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Did you have, if you don't mind talking about this, I have
I
some
do not.
questions for you. Okay, good. Um, were you like, I'm going to die and have a heart attack, or you have a wife or your kids were like, hey, dad, you got to change. Hey, sweetie, you got to change, or what's going on?
No, it was yes. I when I was in the city manager job, I was working a lot of hours and thought, "Geez, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to have a heart attack." Um, but I think more importantly, I looked at it and said, my quality of life is poor. I can't go out and, I have a small lawn. And I'm joking about not mowing the lawn, but I do mow the lawn, and I have a small lawn, and I couldn't go out and do it all at once. I'm like, this is, it takes me 18 minutes to mow my lawn, and I had to do it with a break. I'm like, this is not right. And what's going to happen is I looked at with my parents both passing away, and my I lost my mom in 16 and my dad in '09. They they waited. They were, they got ready and they were like old school, hey, we're going to retire and we're going to enjoy life. And that's not how it happened. Their health did that. So I looked at it and said, you know what? They both died at 72. I'm coming up on 60. Uh, I don't have that many years left. I want to enjoy them. And, I know that's not guaranteed that I'm going to pass away at 72, but I'm going to be ready. I'm going to live life the fullest in the time that I have. Um, So that's what I started doing. I'm like, I if I want if I want to hurt, if I'm going to have pain, I want it to mean something. So I'd rather be pain working out than just having pain. So that's where we went.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I was very lucky. Both my parents were very healthy, active lifestyles and modeled that for me. And so those habits were ingrained in me
Awesome.
for my whole life. So uh, I am 55 and I would say generally healthy, walking all the time, pickleball, some surfing, yoga, love my yoga. But you spoke to that sort of that pain of the body by being active as we get a little bit older.
Yeah.
And then I think about doing that with an extra 60 pounds. And I'm like, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
so painful.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah. Well,
So
good for you.
so
Go ahead. Go ahead.
so it was the other thing is when my parents when I lost my mom, I put together a bucket list. And I said, I'm going to do it all by the time I'm 65. And one of the things was I was an athlete growing up, and I played competitive fast pitch softball until I turned 40. And I got a friend of mine who I used to play with coaches a team, and he's been trying to get me to come out and everything. So I said, okay, I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to come back for one more season. And that was one of my bucket list items, play one more season of all the three major sports that I like to play. And we'll play flag football, basketball, and softball. And so we're in the middle of that season. And so it's been a great fun thing, right? It's about having goals and having things to do. And when you realize, wow, I'm actually out here playing competitive softball with 20 and 30-year olds, and I'm able to compete. That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
So anyway, I think that's the message. That is my life's message that I learned a long time ago is I'm put around to be a role model to say to people, if you want to do something, you can do it. And here's a person who's doing it. And I'm do I think I have some great skills and skills other people don't have? Yes, but in the end, I'm just a human being, just doing what I do, and if I can do it, you can do it.
It's a beautiful message. Thank you for that. I think this is a good place to stop. I got one more question for you, but again, everybody listening, watching, akramoff.com, akramoff.com. If you have a local government or a municipality that's on its death throes, or you've got a business where it's just uh, the environment has degenerated to toxicity, go click on the contact button, reach out to Glenn and your son. I did want to talk about your son. It looks like his name's Joshua.
It
Glenn
is.
and Joshua can help you. Unfortunately, I think we're out of time to talk about Joshua, but what a gift that you get to have your son with you
Oh, incredible.
at your company. Yeah. Um,
That's a whole episode in itself.
yeah, right. I know. I always saw that and I was like, oh, that is awesome. I'd love to
Yeah,
talk about that. Maybe we'll do a round two one day.
that'd be awesome.
Um, yeah, but before we sign off, anything that you were hoping to say, wanted to say, as I said, we're done here. You're like, oh, I really wanted to emphasize X. Does anything come to your mind?
No, I think you pulled it all out of me, so I appreciate it.
All right. Good, good. Fantastic, Glenn. Have a great day. I'm going to hit stop and we'll say goodbye offline.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.